like to call the meeting to order. It's 6:01 on Thursday, January the 27th. And this is budget meeting number 3 of the 2022 Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal budget cycle. And it takes place under the auspices of a combined committee of the whole meeting, Administration and Finance, combined with the Committee of Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities. And so the meeting has been called to order, and I'll now ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. And can I have a mover, please? I have Mr. Packwood moving, and does he have a seconder? Yes. I see Councillor Cameron seconding, and those in favor. The motion is carried. And before I go on, I'll just indicate that Mr. Rainville has sent his regrets. He's not able to be with us tonight. And we have 2 other community volunteer positions that are vacant at the present time, Mr. Bradley and Mr. Robertson. And so now I'm moving on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. And, so I'm hearing no disclosures. And so then I'm moving on to item number 4, which is business arising from the previous committee of the whole. And I would take that to mean the budget meeting number 3, budget meeting number 2, which was held on December the 9th. So is there any business arising?
Just one question, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
It's on second. There we go. Page 339. John Bush outlined his priorities. One is the 3/4 ton truck. We've it's been discussed. Councillor Cameron 3/4 ton truck. It's been discussed a couple times. I know we put out the tender. Nobody responded. I'm unclear as to where we are in that process. Are we going to be re-tendering through the chair to the CAO? We're going to be re-tendering the original tender, or what option will we see coming forward to replace that truck?
So through the chair, I'm not sure of the complete array of options that we're looking at. It may be a retender later on in the year, or there's probably a couple of other options that we'll look at, and certainly we'll report back in the next few weeks on some potential options.
Through the chair. The reason I ask to the CAO, the reason I ask is this week I noticed in the news is that General Motors in Oshawa has ramped up production, and they've added a second shift back on the line again, and it appears that the chassis and the trucks are going to be rolling off the line a little faster than originally thought. So just something that was in the news this week.
Chair, appreciate that information.
Any other business arising from those minutes? Hearing no other business arising from those minutes, I'm going to go on with the agenda. Item number 5 on the agenda is discussion items. We have nothing tonight, nothing in that category. And so I'm at item number 6 on the agenda, which is the action and information items. And the first item is item number 6A, which is apparently a report from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, which is a financial indicator review. And I see from my package that that starts on page 8 of 39. And I'm assuming that the treasurer will want to speak to this briefing note. So through the CAO to the treasurer.
Certainly through the chair. Yes, this particular report, financial review report, is provided annually after the township submits annual financial information return. The reason why I brought it forward was really to kind of outline that we were in low risk on most of our indicators, and we've now moved to a moderate risk under the area of replenishing our capital assets compared to our amortization. And if you look at the actual report itself, we went from 49.9% up to 50.9% in 2020. And we are relatively above average in the area as well as the province. So just keep that in mind when we are doing our capital, that we try to keep, that in mind, that auditors are suggesting we should be doing 1.5 of our amortization, which is about 1.8% or 1.8 million currently, because the 1.8 million is based on historical costs, not on replacement costs. So we need to be thinking about that during our budget discussions.
And if you just point out on in the report where we see the change in the level of risk, I'm assuming that it must be on page 9 of 39, but I'm just wondering which one it is. Is 3 or 4? Oh, I guess it's the second one marked moderate. Is that the one you're talking about?
It would be the second from the bottom.
Second from the bottom.
Correct.
You can go to the left of the column, so it's the year 2020.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
So how are we reading this? We see 2020 and we see the first is actual, we're at 50.9. And the median for the province is 45.2 and the average is 46.7. And I'm assuming that the lower the number, the better. Is that correct?
Yes, the lower the number, the better. We're creeping up there. Actually, it's not the province. It's south, the counties. It actually says the top, it's the rural counties, lower tier counties.
Oh, yes, I see where you're looking. All right, it's not the whole province then.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Through the mayor to the CA or to the treasurer. So help me understand this a little bit, treasurer. For the 2020 number, what kind of an implication would removing the tanker truck, the old one, and if we approve the new purchase of the new one in tonight's budget, what kind of an impact would that have against that 50.9?
Okay, well, what you're going to see is the next report will be based on our 21 capital replacements. So that's going to be reflective first before we know what the impact to the 22 will be. So it's hard to know because it's not specific to, like it goes year by year. So we're going to see a reflection of the 21 capital replacements first before our 22. I have a sneaking suspicion that our 2021, because we didn't do as much capital as we even did in 2020, that indicator is going to increase. We're going to see it worse than even 2020.
And if I may, one more
Follow up.
In a different manner, the two drainage projects that we will be doing, will they count towards that number as well, Mel or Treasurer?
Certainly they will. The only thing that I would like to remind council is those are new assets, not replacement of our existing assets.
Right.
So our amortization expense is going to actually increase significantly with new assets that aren't already on the books.
Right. So it's not taking anything old off.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
So I have one question, and I'm looking at this page 9 of 39 at the top box, the purple box. The date prepared for this report was the 2nd of November 2021, And it looks like it was prepared by a chap named Peter Sizov.
Hold on. It's back there now. You lost everybody there for a second.
Can you hear me?
I can, sir.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay, so my question is, it looks like this report was prepared on November the 2nd and forwarded, was it forwarded to us on that date? The reason for my question is this: what is the earliest that this report is available each year? This is a report that is based on 2020, and it looks like it was available on the 2nd of November 2021, or at least that's when this report was prepared. But is the report available prior to November?
No, and actually the report would have been generated in November, but not received by the township until December, past the time in which I could bring it to council or committee's attention.
So when do we receive it?
You are receiving it now, right after I've been able, the first opportunity I've been able to bring it to you.
Well, we met on December the 9th. That was after November the 2nd.
Yeah, we didn't receive this report on November 2nd. We received it probably mid-December.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we don't show a receipt date on it.
No, I'd have to go back to my, to the email.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Any other questions then with this particular item on the agenda? If not, I'm going to move on. That was item number 6A. I'm moving now then to item number 6B, which is the 2022 draft taxation revenue budget. Now it's a title is taxation revenue budget, and I'm just looking to see if I can find it. Yes, it begins on page 14. So again, to the CAO, did the treasurer want to speak to this?
Certainly through the chair, I can speak to this particular report. So to outline basically there is an increase in some taxation revenue that you can see there. If we do our new assessment at the 21 tax rates, you can see there's an additional $77,000. I think I've reported that to committee or council previously. I have increased the estimate for supplementary tax revenues, basically because of the fact that our building department has certainly been very busy in the last 1 or 2 years, and I'm hoping that we'll see an increase in our supplementary tax billing revenue. There is a small increase in the grant in lieu, and as you're aware, we did receive additional $21,000 for Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund.
But that's not
and there is, well, it's lumped through the chair. This is particularly lumped in this section. I know it is not tax revenue, but this is the section of the budget that it's under.
Okay, so just so that I can get it clear in my head, the 77,000 is an increase in tax revenue.
That is correct. That is the new assessment rated at the 21 tax rates.
And including the 30,000 of an estimated 30,000 for the what would come from supplementary.
Yeah, an additional supplementary is I've increased that line, hoping to see additional supplementary in 22.
Okay, so then what I don't understand is the difference between the 77,275 and the paragraph above, which is 131, which also is called taxation revenue budget.
That is the total at the bottom of the next page. You'll see the total before all the revenues. The total revenues of 131, that's the increase from year over year budget.
Okay, but it's not taxation revenue, it's total revenue.
Okay, yes, sir, it is total revenue. I'm just saying that that particular budget I refer to as the taxation revenue budget.
Okay, but it didn't, I just want to get to page, what page did you say?
15.
Page 15, it includes grants in lieu and other, and the, I can't remember the name of the grant.
Ontario,
OMPF, Ontario
Yes,
Municipal
OM.
Partnership Fund,
yes,
And the increase from the floor.
and increase from the port, et cetera.
the OMPF revenue has always been shown in under this taxation budget for the 7 years I've been here.
Okay, but strictly speaking, it's, okay, so all the others, so if we look on page 15, we can see on 15, all of our sources of revenue then, right?
That is correct.
And so the increase that you're talking about coming as a result of the supplementaries is the difference between the 50 in the 2021 budget and the 80 in the draft 2022 budget, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so the 30 differential is not embedded in the 77, it's in addition.
No, it is. It's in addition.
Ah, okay, all right, so that was the point that I was trying to get at earlier. Okay, all right, so are there other questions for the treasurer with regard to this revenue side of the budget? Okay, so there's no other questions with regard to the revenue side of the budget that I can see coming forward. So I'm moving on then to item number 6C. And item number 6C is the draft council budget, which begins then on page 16. Okay, and so we're on page 16, and that is the briefing note. And there is a recommendation associated with that briefing note. And then the detail of that budget is on page 70. So chair is open for questions here.
Question?
Councillor Cameron and then Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the treasurer or the CIO. Line item, this is on page 17, line item 16-5112, employer health tax. I'd just like an explanation as to why that is shown on the council budget.
I can certainly answer that through the chair. Employer, any monies that are paid out through a payroll, the township is obligated to pay 1.9% of all what they consider salaries. So the council honorarium has a 1.95% tax for employer health tax.
Just a follow-up question then, Mr. Mayor. So does that mean then because it is here, does that mean council is covered for health benefits?
No, it's not the same thing. It's not group insurance. It's a provincially legislated tax.
Okay, I follow that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But it's a tax on, on income, is it not?
It is the employer's tax on salaries that they have paid.
Yeah. I recall that.
Get directly into everyone.
Say again?
A little check every employer gets directly into the 150.
Yeah,
The 50.
Yeah.
It's just that, you know, we get counted as a salary, but it's an honorarium. It's certainly not a recompense on a salary type basis.
It's
Okay.
actually, through the chair, it's actually on income, not necessarily whether it's a salary or an honorarium.
Yeah, it's a payroll reduction.
Okay, Counselor Dillabaugh. Oh, sorry, it was Deputy Mayor and then Counselor Dillabaugh.
Through mine to, through the mayor to the CAO. So looking down through the, and this is, I have no problem with this budget, but it's just a question about mileage. And in my time, having been here, we've never really had a discussion about the value per kilometer for mileage. And certainly in my time of being here, gas has almost doubled in price. But I don't believe that there's ever been an increase for those, I don't collect mileage, but for those that actually do collect mileage. To me, it would seem like there should be, I know we're not actually using that amount of budget, but the per kilometer portion of that seems to me like it should have some kind of a bump. Was there any plan to do that?
So through the chair, at this time, there wasn't. I believe it's been at 0.465 for, I think the last one that I saw was about 2008, maybe. I could be mistaken, but there was a resolution back then.
And I don't want to steal any of the deputy mayor's the point that he's making, but I've been on council since 2006, and I do recall that sometime during that first term we did set it at 0.465.
Yeah.
And while there may not have been any discussion about increases, I for one am glad that there's been no discussion about decreases, because over that period since 2008, when it was set at 0.465, the price of gas was actually up considerably higher than it has been since. And it's only now starting to get back up to the $1.42 or the $1.40 range per liter. So, and just to further speak to that point, the county rate is 0.495. And again, it hasn't been adjusted for quite a number of years either.
And if I could through the chair, I do recall that there is a clause with respect to that the mileage could be updated at any time without having to update the actual full bylaw with respect to the reimbursement policy.
I see that though, when you look at it, there's very few of us that claim it. It looks like we put $8,000 in the budget, but only the claims only amounted to $1,600. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I believe it is a little bit higher, but not much. I want to say we're at about 20, almost 2,200, but substantially lower than the 8,000.
Okay, and did you want to follow up there?
No, I just think it's worth noting that, and your point's well taken about, you know, gas prices were higher when it's lower, and now they're back up considerably higher. Inflation's quite a bit higher, and again, I said I don't claim it, but I think for those that do, you know, if it hasn't been changed in 14 years or longer than that, I guess, by the sounds of it, it's probably due for a small bump.
And I've got Councillor Dillabaugh and then Councillor Hunter.
Yeah, just for the record, Mr. Mayor, it's not a big thing, but what's that senior support, $600? Or $600. 16-5337, duly chaired to the CEO.
So through the chair, I believe that's for to help support like Walker House memberships. But for instance, this year, I believe that Walker House has been closed for most of the
Okay,
year.
that's fine.
And just to speak further to that, Walker House is a senior citizens kind of social center. We don't have that kind of a service available in our township, but we do have a lot of members that belong to Walker House. My wife is one, and they pay an annual membership, and we just subsidize that membership at $25. but it looks like there was only one person that claimed it in all of 2021. And I'm just a bit surprised at that because I know that we have quite a few more than that number of people. On what basis do members that belong to Walker House get that $25 back? Do they have to claim it back? Or do we go to Walker House and say what members are from Edwardsburg Cardinal and then write them checks? How is it done?
So through the chair, I'll have the treasurer speak to that. She'll have that answer for sure.
Certainly, through the chair, yes, an individual would have to make, provide a receipt to the township, and then we reimburse their $25 of their $40 membership. The reason why there's a $25 there for this year in 2021 was not that it was a 21 membership reimbursement, it was a 2020, but I wasn't going to decline her because she had not actually claimed in 2020.
Okay, so, and I think that it's important that council members know about that line item in the budget because it's something that we can talk to our senior citizens about as the occasion presents itself. And I think it's important to note then that the onus is on the individual to bring their receipt for their $40 membership to the township and then ask to have that $25 refunded. But I mean, part of our job is liaison with the public, and that's the kind of thing we should be bringing to their attention. Did you want to follow up?
Yeah, just to follow up, Mr. Mayor, because in 2020, actual was $425.
Yes,
Because
So-
people came through and paid, so.
yeah.
I don't understand why we only had one, like $25 in 2021 so far.
So,
I think through the chair, I believe Walker House for the most part has been closed to activities basically throughout 2021.
Okay, so then you don't pay, it's not an
Well,
annual?
I can't speak to whether you pay or not, but we just.
no, membership is annual.
It's annual, no matter what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think what's probably happened is that people paid their 2020 membership. And then because activity dropped off, they probably did not renew all of their, probably a lot of them did not renew for 2021.
That's why I said.
I suspect that, but I don't know that.
I would anticipate if Walker House opens up to more regular activities, that we'll see those.
So I didn't realize that
again.
was for water.
Yeah. And just, again, for counselors that may not be aware of it, and also because this meeting is public meeting and people may eventually watch it on YouTube. Walker House has a big variety of activity, and not the least of which is organized bus tours to various events of different kinds, several times a year to the Ottawa Arts Center, several times a year, or at least once a year to Toronto. And those bus tours are very heavily subscribed. They seldom leave without a full bus. So, Councillor.
Just a couple of points. First one on the mileage. I think when the bylaw was wrote that it could, as you stated, that it could be changed. The clerk changed it without a bylaw change, but a lot of the townships in South Nation and different ones, their bylaws are wrote, as you allude to, it's varied on the price of gas. So their rates dropped when the gas went down to 95, 96 cents. Their rates dropped 10 or 12 cents a kilometer and then moved back up as the gas went up, where ours stayed steady. Sometimes the ones that are claiming you're really getting a good payout when gas was less than $1 a liter. For it now, I think it's, as you allude to, when it was set, I think gas was running around $1.44, $1.45 or so at the time. That's why it brought in, because up until that time, council got no reimbursement for mileage. So, but on the point of Walker House, I believe that any of the ones apply from the township, the the Prescott Walker House informs them that Edwardsburg Cardinal subsidizes it, but all they gotta do is apply it, so I think they're all informed that they can get the money. I think Augusta does the same, but I think they're all told that
When they pay their.
when they pay their
Ah,
dues, that they can get it back, so. It
Okay,
is a great thing. I know a lot of the seniors I know that also really enjoy those trips, and there is some of them that don't be members that pay, I think, an extra fee if they're not a member to go on those buses. If there's
excuse me,
If there's an opening on the bus, that members haven't filled up, other ones can apply to go on. I think they pay.
excuse me, Counselor. Felix, I didn't want to sneeze while you were talking. Okay, we're still on then this section, council budget. Are there any other questions with regard to the council budget? Hearing none, then I'm prepared to move then now to 6D, which is the draft administration operating budget. And that begins on page 18 of 39 with the briefing note. Oh, by the way, I forgot before I left there was a recommendation that the committee agreed to the draft 2020 budget in principle that includes any recommended committee amendments. So I didn't hear any amendments coming forward. So I will ask if there is a mover and a seconder to action the recommendation, which would lock in this draft council budget.
I would move.
I have Councillor Cameron moving,
I'll second it.
and I have Councillor Dillabaugh seconding, and those in favor.
Aye.
All right, so that's carried. So we understand then that budget is locked in. And now I just want to go back and make sure that I didn't miss anything from the previous one. I don't think so. So now I'm on the draft administration operating budget, which is on page 18. And the detail of that budget begins on page 20. So the chair is open for discussion on that budget. Now, through the CAO, did the treasurer want to speak to this budget? Or just answer questions?
Through the chair, maybe the treasurer would like to just provide a couple highlights of the administration budget.
Certainly through the chair. So the budget actually has decreased, but the main contributor to the decrease in operating costs and revenues is the COVID restart money as well as the expenditures. Being that at this point, there's not been a signal that there's additional restart money. So I've taken that out of the budget itself. The same, the indexing for non-union staff is applied. We have a few different, you'll see throughout most of our operating budgets that the CPP has increased, WSIB premium has increased, and the maximum earnings on both of those benefits have increased. There is a 35% increase initially anticipated by Sun Life, but we have actually seen a reduction. We'll be bringing that forward to shortly in terms of a reduction that Pakeman has been able to get from Sun Life. This particular budget, because we have an election in 2022, in the fall of 22, has the expense of the election, but we're drawing the money out of the reserve to pay for it. There is proposed increase of 15% in the insurance at this part, basically because of the hard market, similar to where we were before. We'll know a little bit more as we get closer to the renewal in March. We have actually decreased our legal costs, and it looks funny because we did spend a lot in legal in 2021, but the 21 year-to-date costs aren't indicative of what we're going to see in 22. We had the union contract and other issues in 21 that will not replicate in 22.
So questions with this? One of the, I don't see anybody else raising their hand, so I'm going to jump in here. One of the, and I'm on page 21 of 39, and there is a proposal here to transfer 350,000 from the reserves, and I believe that was for anticipated or possible potential modifications to the upstairs of the building as a result of additional staff. So my question is this: do we have? I'm just very reluctant to see this transfer occur, and I guess it wouldn't occur until the project was done. But do we have some a competent firm of any sort advising us on the best and most efficient way to add the office space that we're looking to add? Or are we just attempting to execute on this program with our own resources? To the CAO, if I could, please.
So through the chair, we would certainly be engaging a firm to undertake to look at the most efficient and effective way to perform that renovation. But at this time, like council really hadn't decided on whether we were looking at leaving the council chambers in this particular area and focusing on the upstairs for office space only, or sort of vice versa. And there wasn't really a firm decision on whether this type of project would go forward in its full extent.
Okay, well, I'm actually pleased to hear that, because I sit on the committee of management for Mapleview Lodge, and at the county level. And one of the major projects that we're involved in at Mapleview Lodge is not only the creation of the new building, which will provide 190 new long-term care beds, but integral with that project is a separate project, which is to find the most effective and efficient way of making use of the old building once we transfer the 60 patients out of that building to the new building. And we have put out an RFQ for a firm to help us, advise us on the best way to get maximum use out of that old building. And that we've actually talked to a couple of firms who haven't yet hired one. But the reason I'm bringing this up now is because in the course of our work to find a firm to advise us, we have met some folks whose area of expertise is exactly the kind of expertise that we would be looking for to advise us, or at least provide us with some suggestions as to how we might get maximum use out of this building. And nobody has any objections. I think I'm going to pursue that with Mr. Grant and see if we can create some sort of a relationship there, even if it's just on an advisory basis. Are there any other comments or questions with this administration budget? Councillor Dillabaugh.
Thank you, to the chair, to the treasurer. We say that we're not getting any government funding from Safe Restart. Have we actually looked into it? If there's any grants that's going to be available, or we're just taking it that we're not getting any money from the provincial government or feds?
Through the chair, we have not actually looked into it. We never looked into it before. The province provided the Safe Restart. Both amounts were provided by the province. It wasn't. It's not a grant application per se. It's funding that's just provided by the province. So there's not really anything that we can do in terms of investigating. I know there's been a lot of discussion at a lot of the meetings with the health units and such, where there's members of both federal and provincial members on those committees. And I know it's been a topic of discussion. It's been raised several times. So it's a wait and see, I think, at this point.
But I would like to jump in on that one, because, and the treasurer is absolutely correct, for the first 2 or 3 rounds of Safe Restart, it was automatically transferred to the municipalities on a formula-based basis. But I have heard some discussions, and I can't remember, I know it wasn't at the county level, and I can't remember just exactly where I was, that the province is thinking that they may modify it because they realize that they're still going to have to provide some continuing support to some municipalities. And they were thinking at one point, and I think this may have been within the last 6 weeks, that what they may do with this restart program is change it so that those municipalities who felt that they needed additional support in 2022 could apply for it. So instead of being a direct transfer based on the formula, they would make a lesser number of dollars available on an application type basis. Now, I don't know if anything has actually happened along that line, but the staff might want to give it some examination. A timely question, Councillor. Thank you. Is there any other issues or points to bring forward with this draft administration budget? Okay, hearing none, I'm about to move on, but I'm asking that the council indulge me for a minute. I don't know why it is, but I've got the sneezes tonight. I just have to clear myself. Thanks very much.
Okay.
And I see the deputy mayor wanted in here.
Just one question, and it relates to this, and it relates to grant funding, that sort of discussion. And we're talking about using modernization dollars to find out, best uses and help this building become more effective, more efficient. Announced yesterday was a good chunk of change for this additional modernization money. Is that like, are there still funds available for us to apply for, or have we missed the boat with that? Because to me, it sounds like instead of using the dollars that we already had, if we get that plan together, maybe we can still apply for some of this funding. So do we know? There was a lot of money.
And some municipalities have already got a lot. They've applied and so there is again, with the modernization fund, there was an application-based process. I think the problem that we would find ourselves in is that we haven't exhausted all of the money that we got in the first round. We've been very, very, in my opinion, we've been very, very diligent with the way we've handled that money. We've made sure that every single dollar that we've spent is to modernize the operation. Additional software, additional hardware, a lot of things. So the staff might want to look into that, because it is possible that we might be able to apply for a specific amount to do a renovation.
I may through the chair, also, if you recall last year that we had applied for an inclusive and accessibility grant with respect to improving accessibility with some of the doors, and it sounds like that application just became available, I believe, as of yesterday or today. So that may also be an opportunity to as an additional source.
That's pretty good. So Any other questions here before I move on? All right, I'm going to be moving on then to item number 6E. And item number 6E is the draft policing, conservation authority, and cemetery budget. And I see that starting on page 22. And there is a recommendation, don't let me leave without dealing with that. And the essence of the budget is on page 23 of 39. The chair is open for discussion. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, just to refer to the two contract proposals. This is for work to be done at the North Channel Cemetery. Now, are these two different proposals for different work? Because I've been going through them and I'm a little confused as to whether one overrides the other or whether they're two separate. If I could just get an answer on that.
Certainly.
Certainly through, were you going to speak to that, CAO?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Madam Treasurer.
Okay, yeah. So through the chair, the Dave Robertson, who looks after or mines the North Channel Cemetery, brought forward both these quotations, and they are basically the same project, but with two different types of scope. And we're recommending, and he is recommending, that we do the one with the reinforced concrete as opposed to all brick. It will last a little longer and it is a little bit cheaper.
So it's one or the other.
It's one or the other, yes. It's basically a different application to the same four walls.
Yes, so thank you so much, madam.
Okay, so, but to get it clear in our minds, Mr. Robertson is recommending the one that is 15,820, is that correct?
That is correct.
And where does that fit on page 23 of 39? Where does it fit? Or is it in addition to page 23 of 39?
Actually, that particular report is not indicating that. I needed to update that. It actually should have those. It wouldn't have any impact to taxation because the intent was to take 15,000 out of the reserve. I apologize for the fact that that particular report is not updated to reflect that project.
Okay, and would you just go back again? The intent was that the money would come from where?
From the reserve, the cemetery reserve. It currently has a balance of 24,500.
And that's the cemetery reserve. Just looking through my reserve funds here. I don't. Well, there's a cemetery reserve with 21,000 in it, did you say? Or 24,005?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so, but that 24,005 is, it really is for all 5 cemeteries, is it not?
It is, yes.
And so if we took the 15 out of that, we would be depleting it by 15 on just one cemetery. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and if you can just help me one step further, what is our mechanism to get money into that reserve?
Annually, we budget $3,500 to go into that reserve. The upper limit is 35,000 in that.
Okay, so we budget to put 35 in.
It's on page 20.
Yeah.
It's on page 20.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay. All right, any other questions with regard to this? So we'll see an update well, let's have a discussion around the table. Do we have a political will to do this work at which one is it? It's the North Channel Cemetery. Do we have a political will to do this work at the North Channel Cemetery for 15,820? If we have the political will to do it, then I think that the treasurer will upgrade page 23 of 39. But I think we need to make that decision first. You've heard a potential source of funding. There are other ways you can suggest that it be built into the taxation if you so choose. But we need to discuss the proposal to start with. Floor is open for discussion. Counselor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we don't do a lot of work in the cemeteries. We have done some work at the Adams Cemetery a while ago, or a few years ago. I know that was done. I think we should go ahead with this. The North Channel Cemetery is one of the most beautiful cemeteries, probably in Eastern Ontario, as far as that goes. If you haven't seen it, you should go down and have a look at it, because it's not just on the upper level. It also goes down towards the St. Lawrence River as well. It is quite beautiful. So, and this work is not going to improve any with it being done. It's going to deteriorate further. So I think that we haven't spent a lot of money in the past years on cemetery maintenance. So I think we should just bite the bullet and get it done, and consider the money coming out of reserves. We do put money in reserves every year, $3,500 every year. So it's been at least 4 years that we've done any major work. So that's practically your $15,000 right there.
Further speakers to this issue? Hearing Counselor.
I don't really have a problem in repairing this cemetery. A number of years ago, one was around here a long time ago, that cemetery was in disastrous shape there, and we brought up basically the standing it is there now, all by volunteer labor and volunteer products. It was Edgersburg's project at the time there, but there was very little taxpayers' money ever put into that cemetery. Most of it was all volunteer and dedicated wood. Township supplied a little bit of stuff to them, but very little over the years. The trees were all planted by South Nation, supplied the trees at the time for it to plant in stuff there. So I don't have any problem spending a little bit of money on it now. I think at least one of the ones that did a lot of it, they're still alive, and I think he'd appreciate seeing it kept up.
Okay, so I'm not hearing any discussion against the concept, so I would ask the treasurer that the next round, this page 23 of 39 be adjusted to reflect that. But I did have one other question. On page 23, we have a line item called cemetery maintenance, and it shows as $1,500. And the expenditure for all of 2021 is $580. Does $580 keep the grass cut in all 5 cemeteries? Can't possibly. Where do we cut the grass and maintain the cemeteries? Where does that show?
This is maintenance or grass cutting at one cemetery. We have each of the other cemeteries, Mainsville, Adams, and Shanley, each have their own bank account that they pay for grass cutting.
Okay, so this budget just pertains to North Channel Cemetery?
Not specifically to North Channel, no. We have other cemeteries in the municipality, but not some of the cemeteries. This is really only just a small amount of grass cutting at 1 or 2 cemeteries, not specific to North Channel.
Oh, okay, all right. Any other questions with regard to this? All right, fair enough. I'm moving on.
Recommendation.
There is recommendation. And again, if the recommendation is approved, then this locks in this budget with, and I'm going to take it that it would lock it in with the project, the $15,000 project added to it. So let's assume that that's embedded in the recommendation. So the chair is looking, Councillor Hunter, Councillor Hunter moving, And does he have a seconder? Deputy Mayor seconding. Okay, and I'm gonna call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is carried, so that will lock in that one with that project, that $15,000 project. All right, so now I'm to the 6F, which is the 2022 draft planning budget, which then begins on page 26 of 39, and the budget detail is expressed on page 27 of 39. So, chair's open for discussion here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Regarding the 2021 budget line. I just have to get my head around this, just a moment. Yes, it says 2021 86,612. When our budget in 2021 actually showed 86,801. Why the difference?
So through the chair, the 2021 actuals were slightly higher. I would say it would be made up from committee of adjustment fees that were budgeted for 600 and ended up being 1,000 and basically $30. A little bit over on the planning policy, like with respect to the zoning bylaw, which is slightly over. And our contract fee with respect to Novatech for the planning services was about close to 3,000 over. And I think that would those three items basically make up the difference between the overall budget and the actual budget in 2021.
No, but I'm not talking actual to budget. What I'm talking is we locked in our budget, the 2021 budget at 86,612.
That's what shows here, yes.
Right, but if you look at our 21 budget in 2021, it's 86,801.
Okay, so
So
what you're saying is that,
well,
go ahead.
I'm just wondering if there's an error somewhere, because when we locked in the budget at 86,801, that's what we locked it in at. However, on our 2022, page 27, it says 86,810. So I'm just a little confused as to why it's lower. than
Yeah,
what-
so he's not talking about actual expenditures at all.
No,
What
no.
he's talking about is what we saw last year
What we
compared to
locked in
what
at,
we're seeing
right.
this year.
Yeah.
So is there a source of that variance?
Yeah, I just, it just struck me as strange that we would change, what we would change, why we would change, decrease the budget that we locked in a little bit higher. I mean, it's only $200. I'm not.
But no, that's not the issue. The
The
issue is that,
why is it different?
so to the
So-
CAO.
Through the chair, I'm not sure if I have the answer right off the top. I'm not sure if the treasurer does either, but we can certainly follow up on that and confirm what that lock-in was.
Sure.
Potentially why.
Okay, so that can come back at budget meeting number 4 then.
Sure, that'll be fine.
Other questions with regard to this?
Actually, through the chair, if I may, would you be able to provide me the date of the document that you're looking at with respect to 2021? Was it in April? It would be
It was
probably on
April
the
27th?
April 27th?
Correct.
Okay.
It's supposed to be the final budget.
Okay, no, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, so if there's, I'm gonna just jump in here with a number of questions. I think everyone can see that we've added a position, and so consequently, salaries will increase. And we've allocated a higher percentage of the development committee wages to planning. I think most of us realize that in Wendy's position, she is spending a fair amount of time in the planning processes. And so consequently, we have basically two effects on salaries. Now, I guess, embedded in that 65,000, I'm assuming that we've got a portion of the chief building official, a portion of the deputy chief building official position, and a portion of the community development coordinator. Is that correct? We've got a portion of each of those three in that 65,000. Is that a correct assumption?
I will have the treasurer speak to that.
Through the chair, no, that is not actually correct. We have not apportioned any of the deputy, or he's not actually a deputy, the building inspector's salary to planning, because he does not have any planning experience. The percentage is related to the CBO and the community development coordinator's position.
So are you saying that I don't know that I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstood that. 36 relates just to the CDC? The 36 differential relates just to the community development coordinator?
No, not specifically, no. The combined, there's a combined percentage of part of the CBO's salary and a larger percentage of the CDC salary. The other aspect to that is both those salaries had a 2.74% CPI index increase. So it's I guess a threefold in that it's an additional salary by almost 3%, but then a percentage change on their salary, on their apportionment of their hours.
But there is a portion of the chief building official in here,
Correct, but not the building inspector.
but not the building inspector. Okay, all right, okay. All right. And this budget, this planning budget is sourced entirely from planning and zoning applications, is that correct? That 16,000 revenue, where is that coming from?
Through the chair, that's coming from planning and zoning applications.
Okay, so if I look at 2021, all the way down the 2021 actual, we received 16,250 in planning and zoning applications. Our total expenditure was 88,965. So there was a shortfall there of 72,715. Now that 72,715 is basically financed through taxation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. And we're anticipating now that in 2022, the amount that will be required from taxation is 145,855. Is that correct?
I will have the treasurer speak to that, but I believe that is correct.
Yes, that is correct. And the main contributors to that is the increase in policy planning review. There's 25,000 added for that, and that is related to short-term accommodation review, finishing up the zoning bylaw and an interim control bylaw amendment. So
Okay,
the 50,000 includes all those reviews.
okay, okay, now, further questions with regard to this budget? Okay, I'm hearing none, no questions there. And I don't see a recommendation here, so I'm moving on then to item number 6G, which is the draft economic development budget, which begins on page 28 of 39 with the detail on 29 of 39. So, chair is open for questions, discussion on 28, page 28, 29. So this budget, I'm not hearing anybody. So this budget is totally financed, it looks to me, as a transfer from reserves each year. Is that correct?
Through the chair, no, that is typically not correct. But in this particular year, in 2021, the large transfer from reserves was with respect to the waterfront regeneration projects, which was I want to say 155,000 from the gas tax to complete that paving work down there. And the other portion of that 294 was with respect to the potential purchase of land.
So that would have been from the industrial park reserve.
Yes, that's correct.
And was that just the down payment?
Correct. That was just the deposit.
Deputy?
Mr. Mayor, I know during last year's, and we've mentioned it before, but I think it's worthwhile to, while we're here, especially after this week's announcement, to, we've had a close vote on whether we were going to continue to support the SLC EDC, and I certainly want to commend them for the work and for that announcement that was there this week. And I think by having this in the budget again this year, it's good. And I'm hopeful that everyone sitting around the table continues to support that. I know in the past we were sort of struggling with the continuation of that, but seeing that in the budget here this year, I think it's worth mentioning, that it is in there, and that hopefully, council continues to support with the other five members.
I think there's 6 of us left.
6 total.
Yeah.
I said the other 5.
Yeah,
Council.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to parrot Deputy Mayor's comments there, that now that we've got the one big one, there may be more following through. I know, this was really the first big one, or the first one really. And there, I think myself included, was getting a little antsy about seeing nothing happen. It happened. Now we're looking, it just may snowball and we may get more to it. So I'm glad it's in here this year.
It's really well spent.
Okay, Deputy again?
Yeah, and just going down to line item 92, 5392, which is the EcoDev strategy programs, of just again think, and I hope that it stays, this line item stays, and it stays at 12.5 or more. The importance of the cormorant control is evident. You see it in the amount of fishermen on the ice right now, the amount of people out using and using the fishery. You talk to any fisherman, right now there's less and less cormorants in our area. They're around us, but they're not in our area, and I think that is just fantastic money spent. We've heard lots of positive comments back on that one. I don't want to see that change much at all from what it is.
And are they catching fish?
Catching lots of fish.
Good.
I just wish we could get other Riverside
Yeah, right.
municipalities working with us on that. I think it would be a big help.
Everybody's afraid of shooting.
One thing about it, Sure, Mayor, if they don't work with us, we do keep shooting at them. The birds tend to know the area to stay away from. So-
Yeah, exactly what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have a better.
They
area
learn.
to go,
So
so.
better pick it somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Are there any other questions with this budget? Otherwise, if there are no other questions, I'm about to move on. And I'm moving then to a budget number 6, or excuse me, item number 6A on the 6H on the agenda, which is the pre-budget approval for a fire department tanker. And that briefing note begins on page 30 of 39. And there are a number of pages related to this particular item. And just before we get into this, I just want to indicate that our experience at counties, and I think I may have mentioned this at another meeting, our experience at counties certainly has taught us that our 2021 trucks that we ordered, heavy-duty trucks, will not arrive until later in 2022. They will not be available for this snow plowing season. And we have been told that if we intend to purchase, we purchase 3 each year. We've been told that if we intend to purchase 3 for 2023, we should be ordering them now. I just mentioned that. So, and we all know the experience that we encountered with a 3/4 ton truck. So, floor is open discussion on this particular issue. And I draw your attention to the fact that we do have a recommendation on page 31. Deputy Mayor.
Well, I'm assuming, and I'll ask the chief, I guess, through you, and just reading through, there's a lot of information provided, chief. I'm assuming that it was you who put this in here so that we would understand the difference between a pumper and a pumper tanker and all the different units. It seemed to cause a lot of confusion, but for me, having read through all of it, I think 3 times. Now, it certainly made it a lot easier to understand and a lot clearer. My only question was when filling this, are we going to have, I noticed in like Augusta Township, they have, at some of the rivers, some of them, they have like the location where the pipe comes up out of the water and they can connect on. Do we have any of those locations, or do we always just go back to Cardinal to connect to one of the hydrants, or are we reliant on that?
Through the chair, we have one dry hydrant that's located at the mill.
Yeah.
We also have access to on the Dobie farm. They've got a water source there for their farm, and he allows us to use that if we're in that area. But we just have to, we take 4 loads out, we have to put 4 loads back, when we're done.
Sure.
So, but right now we just have the 2.
Okay. And my only other question would be with this truck, it's available now. The mayor was just saying that there's such a delay on them. But the truck that's suggested in here from, I think it's Healy or Eli, it's available like right now. So if we bought it, we could.
Through the chair, if I could just go through the sequence of
Yeah, sure.
that brought us here.
That's great.
Because I've been working on the tanker for a couple of years with different manufacturers and working on budgetary pricing. And after the last meeting, I thought I better get an update because it was in 2020, the last time I talked to any of our salespeople. And I reached out to this Heli fire trucks, and I only heard of them after they're the ones that bought the rescue truck from Gov Deals. So I had never heard of them before that. So I reached out to them, and he told me about the chassis and the lack of chassis. They ordered 25 last year, they got 9, and they were told they're not getting any this year. But when I was talking to him on the phone, he said, I think I may have a chassis, but I won't know for a couple of days. He said a new chassis. So I indicated, well, we're looking at a 2023 delivery. And he just kind of, do you want me to send you some information? I said, can't hurt to send you some information. The reason he was able to get this truck is he was tied into a sole sourcing agreement, I think. And even though there was zero supply, he wasn't allowed to go outside of his, I assume, local dealer to get chassis. So I think he finally worked through that right before I just happened to call and inquire. So that chassis is not, it's scheduled to come off the line in April. Scheduled to come off the line in April, but I anticipate it will be, at least this year, if it's delayed slightly.
And the way that I read through the report, we would buy and pay for the chassis this year and then pay for the rest on delivery. Is that if we went with them?
Correct, with the state of the market, he's looking for us to pay for the chassis when it arrives at his facility, and then the balance of the purchase when the truck is ready. And he indicates that the truck won't be very long from the time we get the chassis.
So I'm gonna just follow up, and then before I recognize Councillor Cameron, I just don't recognize the name. Is this, does this company have a track record? A production track record? I just because I don't recognize the name. I recognize Fort Garry, dealt with them for years.
Correct. I think I can't honestly tell you how many years they've been in business. I think they've been in business for quite a while. They're a family business. They're smaller in Joliet, Quebec. I think they specialize in tankers, and a lot of it goes east and a lot of it goes south of the United States.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes, just getting back to the water pump areas of surplus water. You say we have two. Now, did we not at one time, or do we not still have a underground tank at the Pittston Public Works Garage? Was there not a water refill there at one time?
Through the chair, that is correct. We do have tanks actually at Station 1 and at the garage that they were installed, but we haven't worked the kinks out of. We don't use them.
Okay.
Councillor.
The one at Cleveland Station 1, after it was put in, was it not condemned? Was it not polluted or something that we couldn't use the water out of that?
Through the chair, that's correct. I believe the tanks were all used fuel tanks or oil tanks, and I don't think they were cleaned adequately. So once they were full of water, we were getting all kinds of contamination.
One other thing, and I won't mention which one, but one of the chiefs prior to you had approached ourselves in Tackleberry about using our pumping station at the quarry. We had given authorization for it. There had been a couple of fires that trucks have actually come in and used the sub pump hole to draw water from, but they never did do anything about using the pumping. At the time we suggested all it would really take was a few $1,000 to put a shut off valve and a pipe up that the trucks could drive underneath to fill, because we pump it full capacity there. We pump it 5,200 liters a minute, so it takes about 2 minutes to fill your truck. So nobody ever got back to us about it. So and there is water
I
there,
had not heard that.
it is kept tied out all the time, so has been used a couple of times. The one major one was at Carmichael. Shut of water from, and there is always water. It is a constant water source. So just a suggestion to you if you want to look into it.
Absolutely.
Back to Councillor Cameron.
Yes, at the moment, how many tanker water carriers, I'll just use a generic term, water carriers, do we have at the moment? Do we have 2 or more?
At the moment, I would say we have 3.
Okay, so one is going to, if this new one comes to fruition, one of the other ones is going to be sold
Correct.
at public auction. So that'll still leave us with 3 water carriers.
Correct.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor wants in again.
More just a curiosity question, and maybe I'm not going through it. I'm on their website. So is it a Freightliner, an International, or a Ford?
Through the chair, this is a Freightliner.
Freightliner, and can we have that, is there a Freightliner dealer that we would have that service at, or do we take it back to them, to Joliet to do service?
Through the chair, I believe our closest Freightliner dealer is Cornwall. But that would only be for warranty, we would be getting it serviced probably with Selleck's Mechanical and the rest.
Just one other thing. Did I hear you say at the beginning that this company bought one of ours at public auction? One of our used at public auction?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. They purchased the rescue van.
Maybe that's the
Do
chassis.
you mind if I ask you what was their interest in our rescue van?
I believe they refurbished the rescue van and sold it to probably a northern community.
Okay. Are they? Well, I think our mechanism to dispose is through public auction, so I was going to get into the question of trade, but let's just set that aside and deal with the recommendation that we've got in front of us. Not open up any new cans of worms here. So Councillor Hunter.
Well, by looking at all our costs here and by looking at, we all know the financial situation the country's in and delivery dates and stuff, I think we have the availability to transfer from reserves to get this truck. 72,000 compared to what the estimates are, over $100,000 more. And some of the other ones in another year, and it was assumed the other ones, their numbers quoted here are likely going to be changing rapidly, the same as the vehicle, all vehicle prices. Say we go ahead and get an authorization, go ahead and get this one.
Did I hear you say you're moving the recommendation?
And I'll second it.
Okay, I have Councillor Hunter moving. I've got Councillor Dillabaugh seconding. He was a second ahead of you there.
He was.
Yeah, he was.
One or two more questions, if I may.
Yeah, chair's open for discussion.
Thank you. To Chief Moore, do you, like, I'm assuming, again, with the package that's here, will it have everything that are you getting it ordered with all the packages, the lights, the radio, the mechanisms, the pumps, all of the packages that come with it that you want, and even carrying systems, or are you looking at upgrading it afterwards?
Through the chair, it is essentially a complete tanker, and the specifications are actually very, very close to the newest tanker that we have at Station 2. But no, we don't. There'll be no need for an additional retrofit once it arrives.
Just the way you're getting it, just the way you want it. Because just again, looking at their website, they have other ones that are already there, but they don't have all of the stuff that the one that's quoted here has. So you can see the difference in the prices. But. Okay, good. Thank you.
Further discussion on the recommendation, if any?
Just one,
Go ahead.
just one question when we're talking about the truck we're getting eventually going to sell. Do all the hoses and stuff, are you selling them all with it, or are you keeping the hoses, will they transfer over to this one? Because I assume we keep our hoses all updated every year, so does this one come with all the hoses with it?
No, through the chair, we would be keeping any equipment off the truck that we would be able to utilize.
Okay, I'm about to call the question on this recommendation. Those in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. And so now that basically includes or concludes the items that I have on my agenda. And I'm going to move then to item number 7 on the agenda, which is council inquiries, notices of motion. Are there any council inquiries, notices of motion coming forward? Councillor Dillabaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On our budget meeting number 1, I asked if we were unsuccessful of the Troyan grant for the 2 tennis courts. that we would bring back Johnstown as a capital, for Johnstown as a capital budget. So I just want to make sure that's going to be back on the table now that we were unsuccessful with the Trillium application.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is likely an item for discussion at budget meeting number 4. We'll try to bring the capital analysis, funding analysis sheet back with some of those updates.
Thank you.
Councillor Hunter.
Just one quick inquiry, the CEO will give pre-budget approval for the drainage works in Johnstown and Spencerville. Have we received their permits and stuff of this kind of, these works can go out to tender, or are we still waiting on permits? Or
So through the chair, we are still waiting on permits, and also indicated in the administrative update with respect to Spencerville, there are a few of those intersections that right of way. So we want to get those letters out, and hopefully we can get a relatively quick response from the residents that they'll consent to just transferring that over. And I'm hopeful that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, subject to hopefully those permits being in place, that we can get that tendered, because I would really like to get that, and I know committee and council does as well. We'd like to get that tendered and get the pricing back certainly before budget is set.
But the question is, will the property ownership questions, issues that were brought to our attention in your CAO's report, will those issues in Spencerville affect the letting of the tender in Johnstown?
So through the chair, no, it wouldn't, but one of the suggestions from the engineer is to have those 2 tenders issued in close proximity, so that the individuals that are bidding would know that there's 2 projects on the go, and potentially may receive a little better unit pricing. So we're trying to delay issuing the one a little bit until we can secure that item.
Well, how big of an issue is the permit issue?
It's a risk. I would say probably closer on the lower side of a risk.
My worry is that if we wait too long, we'll end up with nothing. And I think we, as a group, we had made the commitment that, you know, we were going to do these 2 projects as top priority early spring. Both locations. And I would just hate to see us get into the position where either the lack of permits or the property issues in Spencerville jeopardize both projects. My question is, how long, first of all, where do these permits come from? And how long has that entity or body had our application? First part of the question is, who issues these permits?
So through the chair, it would come through the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks is the issuing body. And typically you can look at anywhere from 3 to 6 months for a permit. They have had those permits for, I would say, 2.5 months, maybe 3.
We've had those
They
applications.
have had those applications, we've naturally received acknowledgement. They could be here tomorrow, or it could be, a couple more months.
And what is our risk in putting the tender out with the caveat in the tender that construction begins at the issuance of the permits?
So through the chair, obviously, if we didn't have those permits in there, there would need to be the caveat that construction couldn't begin until we had those permits in hand.
Well, I speak only for myself. I'd like some discussion around the table on this, now that it's on the floor. From my point of view, I would take the risk and issue the tenders. It's a tender call. It's gonna be, what is it, a 1-month call, 4 weeks? Tender call,
So through the chair, we were looking about 3 weeks.
3-week tender call. So even if the tenders went out tomorrow, it would be 3 weeks before we would get them back. And construction wouldn't be starting until May or something anyway. But one thing we've learned at counties is get your tenders out early to get your best pricing, because that gives those contractors their first job of the season. And so I think getting the tenders out on a timely basis is a really important thing, no matter the fact that construction isn't going to start until May or June. It still becomes an important link in the chain. The other issue that I suppose you could say, well, let's wait a few weeks and see what happens with these property issues, but man, oh man, those property issues, they may not resolve themselves at all. That's the position that we're in with County Road 43 right now. Can't get property acquisitions. Councillor Dillabaugh and then Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Duly Chair. What's the risk if we do apply for a tender without our permits? Is there any, can we put that in there to protect ourselves? If I'm like the mayor, I don't want to, I don't care about the better pricing. I know the pricing's, if we have both projects, Spencerville and Johnstown, but I don't want to lose Johnstown's project just because we have problems here in Spencerville. And I think we went through this last year where we wanted to get these tenders out we went through this to get them out bang and get it moving. So we're up and ready in April, May. So what is our, like, what's our the worst part if we went with the tender without?
So, yeah, so through the chair, as I indicated, we certainly can issue a tender with the, and obviously disclose that we don't have the permits in place at this time. The risk is low that the permits won't come in, but the contractor will certainly take that into consideration on their pricing, because if the permits for some unforeseen reason do not come in at the time that they were planning to start this project, they'll need to add some contingency in place.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor? Okay, so can we look into the Ministry of Environment and say, hey, where's our permits?
So through the chair, I would say that our engineer has done some follow-up and will continue to do periodic follow-up with respect to the status and timing.
I'm with the mayor on it. I'd like to go ahead with it. In Johnstown.
And see, and I always here's the position that I get myself into, because we know that Ministry of the Environment is very, very slow issuing permits. They seem to work at their own pace and they hate being pushed. but every once in a while, you have to use political pressure on the bureaucrats to make things happen. I don't like, as a mayor, to be using political pressure, but I do know that every once in a while, you have to phone the MP's office and say, here's a problem that I'm having at the Ministry of the Environment, can you help me? Now, if they've had our applications for 3 months, I probably wouldn't do it. If they've had our applications for 4 months, that would tip me over the edge to make the call to the MP's office. You know, I would make that call and say, I need help here. These guys have had our application for 4 months. We want to get these tenders out the door. Can you make something happen? So, I mean, I'd like to hear some discussion from the members here. At what point do you want to start being obnoxious? Well, say it out loud.
Now. I did. I said no. Yeah.
3 months is a long time.
Oh, yeah, I mean, gee,
I mean, they're talking about red tape reduction, they're talking about getting
Yeah,
stuff done,
reduce
let's
red
get it done.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm all for putting some more, if you can put some political pressure on to try to get it forward, but I'm not in favor of putting a tender until we get the permits issued first. I think our engineer cautioned us against doing that one this year, but it was a risk that if you did that, I know that through some other deals that company I'm with is did with the environment. Boy, you can know your engineers have got something that's gonna be approved, but you go ahead and start staging to get ready or getting contracts out for it, and they can talk about us getting obnoxious with them, they can get off of obnoxious with you, and they can really slow things down then, they can start nitpicking at every little detail along the way before they give you the permit then, so.
Okay, so we have file numbers on these two applications, do we?
Through the chair, I would say that we have file numbers on those applications.
Okay, well, let's let it go just another couple of weeks. Let's let our engineer and our CAO, doesn't hurt for the CAO to phone the Ministry of the Environment and ask what's happening with a couple of file numbers. Doesn't hurt for that. But I think in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to get those file numbers and I'll be drawing them to the attention of the MPP's office and saying, can you help us here? Okay.
I just make a comment. I think Councilor Hunter is quite right not to let those tenders go until we do have those permits.
The CAO has made the point and the previous engineer did, and I'm impatient, but I know that I can see the counter argument there. Because it can really come back to bite you badly in terms of bad tendering and da 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 da. But I'll tell you, I don't have much patience for it.
So through the chair, just to reassure, I completely understand committee and council want both of these projects done, and I am doing my best to make sure that nothing goes off the rails that's going to prevent that. I know that there is a willingness.
I'm gonna tell you, Mr. Grant, I'm really upset to hear about these property issues coming to light this late in the game. That's pretty upsetting for me.
So through the chair, I'm not overly pleased about the that news either. But, deal with the things as they come up.
Well, I have a lot of patience, but it's short.
I don't, I have no patience.
I lack both.
I think we all know that.
Understood.
I think we all have to have patience, but there is a point where
Yes.
you're paying engineers to do surveying and stuff, and really kind of expect them to catch that before
Yeah.
it gets to the stage that you have the whole thing grew up, and then all of a sudden they realize there's something not just on the line, so.
Deputy Mayor.
If everybody's done this conversation, I just want to make a comment. So everybody done? Nobody else want to comment? And then somebody else may have already done this, maybe I missed a meeting and didn't get an opportunity on the record to compliment our public works staff on, the hard work that they've done over the last 2 weeks. Keeping the roads, well maintained, very safe, the sidewalks clean to the best of the abilities, and removing hundreds and hundreds of loads of snow from all of the, here in Spencerville and in Cardinal and Jonestown. I think they've done a remarkable job for a small crew. So if the CAO would pass along my thank you for the commitment and the hard work that they're putting in.
Thank you very much. Okay, no other comments here. I'm gonna move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is the mayor's report, and all I want to say here, now, earlier today, through the CAO, the clerk forwarded to me a draft agenda for budget meeting number 4. Did that go to all members of council or all members of this committee?
Through the chair, no, it went to the chair of the committee.
Oh, okay, all right. So then the agenda review will be with myself and, okay, fair enough. So the only thing I'll say then is to the clerk and whoever prepares these agenda, kind of mark them as budget meeting number 4 and the similar, the one that we're dealing with tonight is actually budget meeting number 3, but that doesn't appear on the title of the agenda. So if you could just have that little thing added to the title, it helps me keep my files at home straight, and needless to say, I need that help. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, and just to confirm that the budget meeting number 4 is February 2nd.
That's the date that I have, February the 2nd at 6 p.m. Okay, and one other thing I'll just report that we did have, I think it's probably going to be close to the last county budget meeting today, the operational budget. And we're looking at somewhere around 2.5% increase in the county tax rate. And by the way, just another point of information for you, 1% increase in the county tax rate. Oh, let me go back a step. We will raise an additional 7. I'll report it at the next meeting. I'm going from memory and that's not good. Okay, I'll end my report right there before I get myself in trouble. Item number 9 is a question period. There is nobody here. To the clerk. Anybody on the line at all? No. We have no closed session. Okay, welcome, Chair. No closed session. The chair is looking for the motion to adjourn. Council, Mr. Packwood moving. Does he have a second? Deputy Mayor Deschamps second. Oh, those in favor?
Yes.
Motion is carried. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.